In the last video on this subject, I said that the Rochdale by-election has got more attention, arguably, than any by-election in recent years. But the question is, how significant is it? Now, for George Galloway's supporters, it's a massive landslide. It's earth-shaking. It's going to change everything. I think they're deluding themselves. Let's be clear, this is one seat. It's one seat. And it's significant. He's won. Even allowing for the allegations of harassment, and I will come back to that because I think it's important. It's clear that he won, so I don't think there's any dispute over the actual results. But I think his supporters are already trying to claim that this is a big bloody nose to the establishment and so on. Well, certainly it's not a good showing for Labour and the Tories. Let's be clear about that. In the case of Labour, it was the issues around their candidate. In the case of the Tories, well, Rochdale has never been a strong Tory seat, as far as I know. It's been a red seat for years. So when you factor that in, it's really not overly surprising, that an outsider would then win. Is it a wake-up call for Starmer and Sunak? On some level, yeah, they should take it seriously. But again, it's one seat. Galloway was asked by a Sky News correspondent what he thought of the Prime Minister's statement. Sunak had said that it's alarming, basically, was the word that he used, that Rochdale returned a member as divisive as George Galloway, and he didn't actually name Galloway by name. I don't think he actually said a name. Well, Galloway's response was, "Why do you keep talking about the Prime Ministers if he's Moses? I have no respect for him." And he kept reiterating this point. And then he actually went, "I do not respect the Prime Minister. I despise the Prime Minister." Now, in of itself, I don't think that's, he's being honest, right? I have no problem with public figures being honest, and it's better to know where he lies. He despises the Prime Minister, and he says millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister. That may be true. There are, politics is politics. There will be millions of people on the left who don't like the Conservative Party and therefore don't like its leader, just like they wouldn't have liked Liz Truss or Boris Johnson or Theresa May or any other Tory leader. I don't think it's necessarily Sunak as an individual. I don't think actually Rishi Sunak is a particularly controversial Prime Minister. He's rather dull, if anything, but he just happens to be the latest Tory Prime Minister. My message to George Galloway is there are many, many people in this country who also despise you for your track record. I mean, there's another thing to consider, though, where I'll come back to that point, but there was 39% turnout. It was not a great turnout. 39% of those eligible to vote in the town of Rochdale voted. That means 61% didn't. Now, that reiterates the importance of voting. So, for Labour voters and Tory voters in Rochdale who didn't bother turning up and are now not happy about Galloway getting in, well, you should have voted. Even if it's a question of you weren't overwhelmed by the candidate, it would be better than what you've got. Now, I don't think that Galloway is going to make a massive impact, actually. That's another thing. I don't think we should exaggerate his influence. Galloway acts like, he was talking about Sunak being this almighty figure that people fawn upon, but this is coming from a man who was talking about having a victory parade as if he's just won the general election. It's one seat. Galloway's done this before. He's swooped into an area, he's stirred up divisions, a bit like the far right do, actually. It's a bit like what the left often accuse the far right of doing. Well, Galloway goes in, stirs things up, and, he clearly has some political skill. I won't deny that. Dedicated campaigners, but there are serious things that went on in this election. The allegations made by Richard Tice of the Reform Party. The Reform Party campaigners were harassed, faced bomb threats to the point where they needed police protection. These are very serious allegations. Galloway claims he's going to represent everyone. He was given the opportunity to condemn this. He was asked by the Sky News correspondent, look, there are people in Rochdale that say they are concerned about you. And Galloway's arrogant response was, I've just won a thumping majority. Now, even if that is true, he's won a clear majority. Even if that's true, that already contradicts his claim to be representing everyone. A true leader would say, "Well, I will listen to those concerns, and I'm sorry to hear that those people have concerns. I'll reach out to them." But that's too much to ask for this vile character. Galloway to me is utterly obnoxious. This is a man who literally praised Saddam Hussein, met Saddam Hussein, then denied it. So he's no right to call anyone a liar in the political arena because he has a track record of lying on these things. Um, he worked for Russian state media. Again, he denies it. He's a liar because he did. His Sputnik show was a branch of RT. RT is Russian state media, and it was designated as such on social media. So again, Galloway's lying when he says he hasn't worked for Russian affiliated mouthpieces because that's precisely what he done. And look at the name Sputnik, named after the first Russian rocket. So that raises serious questions about where his loyalty lies. Galloway is a long-standing apologist for the Putin regime, which makes his claims to be all about human rights and compassion utterly disingenuous. Why is it he has such compassion ostensibly for the Palestinians, but he doesn't extend the same compassion to the Ukrainians? Now, some will say that they might even accuse me of that. I've said that I am very concerned about what's happening in Gaza right now. I think far too many innocent civilians are dying, and I condemn some of Israel's excesses. That's my position clear, right? Um, Galloway hasn't just worked for Russian state media, he also worked for the Iran state mouthpiece, Press TV. This is the man who's now representing a British constituency. I think Galloway's a traitor. Um, and I think he's an utterly obnoxious character. I hope he's kicked out in the general election. So, he shouldn't be too smug about this. The general election could be in 7 months or so. Um, but, it shows a number of things. It shows that the two big parties do need to get their act together, not be complacent in places like Rochdale. Um, and also, people need to vote. So if you live in Rochdale and you're not happy that George Galloway is now your MP and you didn't vote, well, frankly, you are partly to blame. People need to get out and vote. That's a question of civic responsibility. But Galloway shouldn't be too smug about this. 39% is a low turnout. And it was a campaign that was mired in a very ugly atmosphere. He claims that he's going to represent everyone. Now is his chance to prove it. And instead of taking that opportunity and reassuring people, he's boasting about his thumping majority. I think Galloway's a very vain character. He's very full of himself. Um, and, I think that fosters a kind of personality cult among his supporters. You just need to look at any video about this, and it's being flooded with pro Galloway comments. Is that a true picture? I'm not sure that it is. Now, I know this video will get thumbs down, it will get Galloway supporters coming on. Whether I keep the comment section open or not will depend on the nature of the comments. But I don't owe this Russian stooge a damn thing. I have no respect for George Galloway. I think he's dishonest. I think he's a moral hypocrite. I think he's a demagogue. Um, and I think it's sad what happened in Rochdale, but I also think we shouldn't exaggerate it.